That's fine. That's just normal. That's human. I can feel like it doesn't matter what I do, it's never enough. Not knowing ourselves. Who am I? What's my purpose? They're never there for me. They don't care about me. They're out doing things with other people. Those people are often very, very dysregulated, and they need their regulation from an external source. Nope, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry, but that's not okay with me. Hello everybody, I'm Catriona Morten. I'm a sensory motor psychotherapist. And today what I'd like to talk to you about is the difference between having needs and being needy. But before I jump into that, if you're enjoying these videos, then please give us a like and subscribe to our channel, because it really helps us get a message out there to loads more of you. Neediness versus having our own needs and being allowed to have those needs met, or even knowing what those needs are. These are two things that can get very confusing for people, very conflated. And I know a lot of my clients, they believe that if they express a need, if they identify a need, then it makes them needy. And that makes them weak, vulnerable, selfish, all number of things. Now, we have to go back to look at, well, how were our needs met? Because we're all born with needs. When we're babies, the only thing we can really do is cry and, not cry. And that's our only way of really expressing when we're in discomfort or there's something wrong. That can be very, very difficult for some parents. Some children cry more than others. Some children are harder to settle than others. Some babies are just very content. And, it's really tough being a parent. It's tiring, it's a minefield to navigate, and it can be very difficult to know if we're doing the right thing. And when we're short of sleep, and we're short of time, and we doubt ourselves, or there's, loads of other pressures coming from outside to do loads of things at the same time as juggle this baby, then it can be very, very difficult. It can be very hard on your patience and on your temperament. And those things are normal. What I'm talking about are when things are consistently difficult or absent. When we're consistently given the message that when we express a need, a discomfort, an emotion, something that we want, that we need, that we're told we're too much, we're being difficult, we're making a fuss, we're whinging, we're being selfish, we're not putting others before ourselves. A whole number of messages of things that are told to us about the way that we are, of what happens when we put our needs out there, when we express something. If that consistently gets either rubbished, minimised, told off something negative, then we learn that that's not the response we want. That's not a response that's going to make us feel better, that's going to bring us closer to our carers, that's going to bring any kind of positivity. And so we learn what kind of responses we get, what feels good, what feels right, and the things that don't really upset our carers to make our life even more difficult. And so depending on what we're getting, that message that we're getting repeatedly, consistently, we will adapt and conform with our behaviours of how we express things. We'll learn to maybe really suppress feelings, emotions, and go more into trying to second guess what's going to get us the right response, what's going to just keep the peace or get us the right kind of attention. And we learn how to have this kind of engagement with our carers. And that can really mean trying to please, second guess, do the right thing, be the way that our carers want us to be. If we're told, we have to always be very well behaved, very quiet, children should be seen and not heard, then we learn to be pretty invisible and not really make much noise, because that will get us maybe not positive responses, but not a negative one. We learn very quickly how to adapt and how to kind of work in this family dynamic that we're born into. Children are incredibly adaptive, and it's not that, if parents are watching this and going, oh my God, I'm sometimes a little bit, short-tempered or, lack of patience. That's fine. That's just normal. That's human. Children have to learn that, parents have their ups and downs as well. It's this consistent, this over and over again response and reaction to what we want. If every time the baby cries, it gets a rough response, then that baby is going to learn quite quickly to not cry as much, to be quieter. If the baby learns that, when they cry, they get picked up and they get a cuddle or, their nappy changed or fed, then they know that that's okay. They don't have to adapt that behaviour. But it's when we don't get that positive response, the thing that we actually need in order to make us feel better. And sometimes it's not that the parents are lacking in any way. Sometimes, a lot of parents really doubt themselves. They've not had great childhoods themselves, not had a really good experience of being parented themselves. And so it can be really hard to know the right thing to do. And if the only response that we ever get is to always be fed, then those other needs aren't met and we don't learn to kind of value them, identify them by our carer valuing them, identifying them, listening to what's needed, trial and error, being tuned into the baby, the child, rather than, just expressing something and the child having to adapt and conform. That then makes it very difficult to be a kind of autonomous person, to, be really in tune with what feels okay for us, what doesn't feel okay for us, what we actually want in this moment, what's going to fill that gap, what makes us feel good, and how we adapt and respond to others around us. Because when we can learn to meet our own needs, when our own needs have been met, then it almost becomes second nature to be able to tune into someone and, check the kind of energy, the vibe, the emotion that's going on, and just know instinctively, unconsciously, how to meet that without it being a big deal. And that's how we learn to compromise and work together. But if we haven't had that equal experience that, our needs are important, we're just expressing them, oh, what's the matter? What can I do? Then we don't learn the value of those things and we learn how to focus on other people. People that really can't recognise their own needs, what are they? Then they often also don't have a really good sense of themselves, of their personality, what really makes them tick, the things that they really enjoy, the things that are really important to them, that makes us, fundamental individuals. Sometimes there can be gaps in that, and there can be a sense of really not knowing ourselves. Who am I? What's my purpose? And this is extremely problematic, as you can imagine, when it comes to relationships. If we don't know what's right for us, how is somebody else going to work that out? Because the cues and the communication is going to come from us. And often people who struggle to identify their own needs or believe that to have a need is selfish or being needy, then we're just really focused on meeting the needs of the other person. And we can get lost. And resentment can build because we're never seen, we're never important. Our opinion or, the things that we want, they're often second. And we get very, very good at just instinctively and consciously being very focused in on the other person and putting their wants, their needs before our own. And that can go into all aspects of relationships. There is a huge difference between being able to identify and either communicate or, take action ourselves to meet our own needs, to being needy. Needy is a completely different concept. When people are needy, then there's a huge developmental attachment trauma wound. There's a big wound in there that means that there's huge things missing. And for those people, they will seek external needs to fill that void. They'll seek external reassurance, attention, validation. They want, people's time. They want to constantly have this thing that is missing within them. And they're requiring it from other people, from external, because they have no sense of that themselves. And it's often a big attachment wound and a developmental wound that means that, their needs really haven't been met at all, or they've had glimpses of it, and then it's been there and it's wonderful, and then it's gone. So they kind of know what they're aiming for because it feels good. They just have no sense of being able to do that for themselves. Those people are often very, very dysregulated, and they need their regulation from an external source, always reaching out to people, always needing it to come from here, because that's the only value that they put on it. And for those people, their experience has been that they've been told they're too much and they're not given the things that they need. And that kind of replicates what we've had internally, we express externally. And so we can come across as being too much, needing too much from people. And it pushes people away from us. It can create a kind of divide and a void. And of course, the person with the heat-seeking neediness pursues it even further, and will often, through no fault of their own, use means of manipulation to get those needs met, of, having a crisis, having an illness, having a something that can have a, massive grain of truth to it, but can be massively over-exaggerated. And the problem with that is when we can identify that void, that wound within us, and we believe it's just like people are always letting us down, and my friends are never there for me, even though, if someone makes that statement, so, well, how many people have you spoken to this week? How many people have you seen? It can be quite a lot, but it's not enough. And that one thing, that one time someone says, oh, no, I can't today, sorry. They're never there for me. They don't care about me. They're out doing things with other people and not for me. Other people are getting their attention, but not me. The fact that they maybe saw that person twice that week, maybe just the day before, it loses its value. And so for people on the receiving end of this, it can feel like it doesn't matter what I do, it's never enough. And that is true. If it's attention, if it's reassurance, if it's validation, if we need that from out here to heal or try and fill that wound, it's never going to do it. We have to learn to be able to do it from within, identify where that wound is, where it's come from, what caused it, what's trying to express itself, what's needed, what are those missing experiences, so that we can learn to regulate ourselves, meet our own needs. And those little attached parts, they often hear whenever I say that to people, oh, but then that means nobody will ever be there for me. The opposite is true. People are much more likely to be there for you because you're not expecting and needing too much from them. It's going to be in a measured response, and we're going to be able to take what they've given us, get rid of our nourishment barrier that stops us taking it in and validating it, and feel fulfilled with it. Not always, okay, that went in, next. And it can be the same for food. Food can fill this void or feel like it's filling the void. I get really emotional and I want to eat something really, usually quite a kind of childlike food, something that's going to give us a big hit of something, but then it's not enough. We want more. If you recognize any of those kind of aspects to your behavior, then just know it isn't your fault. You're not faulty. You're not manipulative for the sake of being manipulative. You are trying to fill a wound that you feel. It feels really real. You know, these wounds, they kind of communicate to us all the time. You know, pay attention to me, feed me. And if we don't know how to attend to ourselves, because we haven't been attended to in the way that was necessary and needed at the time, then we have no experience of that. How do we do that? And of course, we're going to look for it in other things out there in order to make us feel better, to give us reassurance, to make us feel that we matter, or for our safety, or for our emotional regulation. You know, every time if something happens and we're like, oh my God, who can I ring? Then we're doing that automatically. And while it's great to have that with people, it's also really important that we can do that for ourselves. It puts us in control. It doesn't make us so vulnerable. It doesn't make us really, really dependent on people having to be there. It's good when they are, but it means that we're not going to fall to pieces. It's not going to feel like the world is ended if they can't, because we've got a plan B, that we actually know how to regulate and reassure and get our emotions under control, let them do what they need to do and not be absolutely terrified of them. The more we can learn about ourselves, the more we can understand what's going on in here. When we work with the body, all these wounds show up in very obvious but sometimes subtle ways, and they're always consistent. And so if you know that you have these things, then they can't be sorted from just in here, and that would be like a talking therapy. We can't think our way out of it, because they're impulse controls, especially if it's anything to do with attachment. It's behavioural first, and oh my God, what am I doing? And I do this every time, and then next time, I'm not going to do that again. Woof, the impulse. It comes and it takes us. So we have to be able to work with the body if we're going to regulate our nervous system. It's all in here. It's here, but it's all in here. Our emotions are here. They might spill out of here, but we feel them in here. And this is where our wounds lie, but this is where our healing journey lies as well. And these things aren't rocket science. It is important, talking therapy can be fantastic for understanding why and making sense of it. And that can be brilliant. And often people come to me when they've done that. It's like, I know this, it was brilliant, it made perfect sense, but I need to change it. I need to actually feel better about this. I need to, change some fundamental things in me so my behaviour isn't repeating, that I'm not, keep doing these things. Because, they'll show up in relationships and friendships. And when we want to be able to, be the person that we want to be independent, but form close, healthy relationships, then we know that, there's maybe some work to be done. It might not be massive bits of work, but, if we're going to have boundaries, we need to know what our needs are, what's important to us, why we won't allow whatever it is that's coming at us, or we will. But when we know that we're allowing things, but not able to do anything about it, well then, self-worth, needs, all of those things are necessary in order to be able to go, no, I'm not doing that, I'm sorry, but that's not okay with me. And so, the world of identifying, having needs, that's a healthy place. People know what they can do for us. We can express that. It can feel safe. It's much easier to say, oh, I would really rather you didn't do that, or next time, could you do this? It'd be brilliant. And most people are very happy to, accommodate that. If we're in a relationship with someone, we want it to be as flowing and free and easy as possible. Give and take, not always going in one direction, because that just creates an imbalance, and it's not good for us, for our brain, our emotions, and our sense of ourself. So we want to find this balance with ourselves, our needs, our environment, and our relationships. When we can do that, everything else feels a whole lot easier and a bit less chaotic, a lot more under our control. And, you know, when we can develop that sense of observing these things, it gives us a huge heads up. We're not just in it and reacting and responding. We're noticing, we're being curious, and, you know, we're able to take a step back and think before we act, or, you know, reflect on what am I doing right now, or what's going on in this moment right now. Those are fantastic things to learn how to do. And like I say, it's not rocket science, but we do have to involve the body and everything that is showing up in the body in order to identify them, meet those needs, fill the empty gaps, the missing pieces. When we sort things in here, they much more easily just start happening out here. And our life just gets that sense of balance. So I hope, you know, that helps make sense of some things. And if nothing else, it just sparks your curiosity. So if you found this video helpful, useful, then please give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye!